Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are tuning in. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is Brahma Viharas. We're working through the chapter on joy. And today I'll be guiding a meditation designed to allow us to cultivate joy for ourselves and for people we don't like very much. Now, this is arguably the most challenging stage of the practices on the Brahma Viharas. Each of the Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, and joy, we go through these stages. We start with ourself. Pardon me, I'm getting up my little diagram here. If I can find it. We go through, nope, okay, it's fine. We go through stages. We start with ourself. And ideally, we work through the stage cultivating joy. Use the example of joy because that's the chapter we're working on. Joy for ourselves for 2 weeks. And we spend about 30 to 45 minutes a day offering these very precious phrases of joy to our own heart for about 2 weeks. Now, I say 2 weeks, it could be, 3 weeks. I would do no less than 2 weeks, though. 2 weeks is a good amount of time for us to feel each phrase, feel the resistances to each phrase. That's quite important. Then we go to the next stage of the practice and we work with extending joy to loved ones for 2 weeks. And again, bringing the phrases to our heart and then to the hearts of loved ones, and noticing what we feel when we do that activity. Any openings, any resistances, and so forth. Then we extend the practice to people we don't know, which was the meditation I guided yesterday. And then we rest in that, experiencing the resistances each day, doing that for about a half an hour, extending joy to our own heart and then to the hearts of people we don't know. And this is so that we're allowing our circle of compassion, our circle of care, our circle of loving kindness, of equanimity and joy to expand, to stretch. And it is very much a stretching, very much like when you start a yoga practice, you can just barely touch your toes. But then after 2 weeks of, doing downward dog and doing sun salutations, before long you're touching your toes and your hands can be even flat on the mat. And so as it is with our circle of loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, and joy, it's natural for us to feel those qualities for, well, hopefully for ourselves. Some people have a little bit of trouble with that, and so that's fine. But that's why we start with ourselves. And so we erode the resistances to feeling those qualities in our own heart. And then we offer that to a loved one. That feels pretty natural to friends, to family. Those are people that we generally consider in our tribe, in our family, in our circle of care and compassion. People we don't know, not so much. So that's where the stretching starts to take place. We're slowly stretching those muscles so that we can eventually include people we don't know into our care and compassion, equanimity, joy, and loving kindness. And the more we do that, the less likely we are to act in ways that bring suffering to people throughout the world. So at this stage, we are opening that care and compassion to people we don't like. And I use the phrase perceived enemy. Now, that phrase perceived enemy is quite important because according to Buddhist psychology, where these practices arose from, we never actually experience an enemy. When we interpret somebody as enemy, we're really feeling our own discomfort and then we're projecting that discomfort out onto that person, or it could be a situation. Because that discomfort is so, well, uncomfortable, we don't want to feel that. And so we project it onto another person, and then we struggle against that person. We resist that person, we fight against that person because we're really fighting our own discomfort like that. And because that's such an unconscious process, an unconscious reactive pattern, we numb out. And in that numbing out, we don't recognize that it's our own projection. We forget that we're projecting that. But at the end of the day, even though we're fighting against another person, we're really fighting our own discomfort, our own heart, and so forth. And I've used this quote many times in this series, but I'll do it again because it pertains so beautifully to this teaching. Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "All of the devils and demons in the world arise from the human heart. That is the only battlefield where the war should be fought." And so I often get the question here when I'm talking about this process and this phenomenon. Well, what about people who really transgressed against me, right? Aren't those my enemies? The guy who punched me in the jaw, isn't that my enemy? Don't I have the right to consider that person an enemy? That's fair enough. I have to admit, if I had been punched in the jaw, it would take me quite a bit of joy practice to be able to extend joy to that person. There would be discomfort when that, if I was to see that person, I would feel that anger, I would feel that discomfort. But then it is my own discomfort about the proximity of that person that gives rise to this experience of anger, you see. Just because that person transgressed against me, that just makes him or her, a very good hook for my projection, a very likely candidate that I will successfully be able to unconsciously project my own discomfort onto this person. And then the war ensues. So these practices, loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, and joy, they help to remove the illusion of enemy. They help us to see that that concept of enemy is just my own discomfort projected outward. Now, another voice that this puts us directly in contact with is the voice of jealousy, particularly when we're extending loving kindness or joy, equanimity, or compassion, it doesn't matter. When we're extending that out to a perceived enemy, we might indeed experience jealousy or envy. Now, when envy or jealousy arises, look at the conditioned pattern voice. What does that tell? What are we trying to avoid when we experience jealousy, when we experience envy? That's a really good question to ask yourself if that type of resistance arises in this practice. Ask yourself, what is this voice trying to tell me? Is it telling me, well, I should be this way or I should be that way? I should be more like this or I should be less like that? Generally, a very critical attitude, a very critical feeling is hiding underneath the voice of jealousy or the voice of envy. This is a fairly typical reaction to another person's success or happiness, particularly if we feel this person is an enemy. That's often what arises, this envy, this jealousy. And really, that critical attitude is pointing at us, right? We can see it right there. I should be more like this, I should be less like that. It's really pointing at us. But this becomes yet another projection. We redirect that critical attitude at another. That takes the form of jealousy, it takes the form of envy, like that. We might even take a bit of pleasure in diminishing that person's accomplishments, right? When we feel that. So, very profound practices, these practices on joy. I find that they're most often overlooked in the contemplative traditions, the practices on joy, but I have found them to be quite deep, quite extraordinary. So, are we ready for this voyage here? Okay, I'll ring the bell. That was a rhetorical question, by the way. I'll ring the bell. I'll guide us into the present moment. And today we'll start with the sounds. We'll start with sounds and we'll come through the breath. Oh, sounds, body, and breath, like that. And then we'll offer these precious phrases of joy to our own heart. And we'll just move through that stage rather swiftly, getting a feel for each phrase. And then we'll offer the phrases to the heart of a perceived enemy. Now, we don't want to use someone who really hurt us, or somebody who really wronged us or caused us great harm. That will make the practice really nearly impossible to work through. So use somebody, for whom there's a bit of tension towards, but not somebody who really caused you great harm. Okay? So I hope we all have somebody in mind. Somebody, there's tension there. Maybe it gives us a bit of a weird feeling when we see that person. That's a good perceived enemy to start with. Okay, enjoy. So allowing the body to rest, allowing the mind and heart to rest. Just coming into this present moment experience. I'll ring the sound of the bell. Rest your thinking mind on the tone of the bell. Allow the decay of the bell to guide your awareness into silence. And as your mind rests in the silence of the present moment, you might also notice sounds of the present moment. Not focusing on any one sound in particular, but noticing the entire field of sounds. And I'll ring the sound of the bell again. Rest your thinking mind on the sound of the bell. Allow the tone of the bell to guide your awareness into silence. And now, while resting in the silence of the present moment, allowing awareness to expand out to include any sounds which might be available. And if your environment is quiet, you might notice how the sounds interact with the silent space. And while resting there with the sounds and the silence of the present moment, bringing attention to the sensations of feet against the mat or the floor, sensations of clothing against the legs, noticing the weight of the body against the cushion or chair, mat or floor. You might notice sensations of clothing against the back, sensations of hands resting against the body or touching each other, the arms resting against the body, noticing the sensations of clothing against the shoulders, you might also notice sensations arising from the back of the neck, the sides of the neck, sensations arising from the face, including the lips and the nose, the eyes and the forehead, noticing any sensations arising from the top of the head. And while resting there with the sound and silence of the present moment sensations arising throughout the body, bringing attention to the breath as it enters the nose and leaves the nose, noticing the breath touching the back of the throat, noticing the rib cage expanding and contracting with each breath, the rising and falling of the abdomen as you inhale and exhale. You might also notice the back moving out as you breathe in as you breathe out. Noticing the shoulders rising and falling with each breath. And so we'll rest right there just for a few moments, maintaining that open, spacious awareness on the sounds and silence, sensations of body and breath, and just rest. And now, while maintaining that open awareness on the sound and silence, body and breath, we'll begin offering these very precious phrases of joy to our own heart, as if we were bringing our heart the most precious, rare gift. Visualizing or imagining what our life would look or feel like if each phrase was completely reflective of our life circumstance. May I enjoy the activities of life itself. May I enjoy things just as they are. May I experience the world taking joy in all that I do. May I know what to do, whatever arises. And now, while breathing in and breathing out, allowing a visualization to arise in the mind's eye, visualizing our person of difficulty, our perceived enemy, if you will. Just take a moment to visualize this person. If visualization is difficult, you might just say their name a few times, getting a feel for this person's presence. And we'll begin offering these very precious phrases of joy to our perceived enemy's heart, as if we were offering them the most precious, rare gift. And after each phrase, we'll spend about a minute visualizing or imagining what their life would look or feel like if each phrase was completely reflective of their life circumstance. May you enjoy the activities of life itself. May you enjoy things just as they are. May you experience the world taking joy in all that you do. May you know what to do, whatever arises. May you enjoy the activities of life itself. May you enjoy things just as they are. May you experience the world taking joy in all that you do. May you know what to do, whatever arises. And breathing in and breathing out. allowing any visualizations in the mind's eye to dissolve. You can let those fade back into the open, spacious awareness from which they came. And as you rest, noticing the sounds of the present moment, and simply rest and listen to the soundtrack of the present moment, not focusing on any one sound in particular, but noticing the entire field of sound. You might also notice the backdrop of still silence within the sense of hearing. And while resting there with the silence and sound, bringing attention to the sensations of feet against the mat or the floor, noticing the sensations of clothing against the legs, the weight of the body against the chair or cushion, floor or mat. There might be sensations of clothing against the back. You might also notice sensations of hands resting against the body or touching each other, the arms resting against the body. You might notice sensations of clothing against the shoulders. There might be sensations arising from the back of the neck, the sides of the neck, sensations arising throughout the face, including the lips and the nose, the eyes and the forehead. Noticing any sensation arising from the top of the head. And while resting there in this present moment experience of sound and silence, sensations arising throughout the body, bringing attention to the breath as it enters and leaves the nose, noticing the breath as it touches the back of the throat, noticing the rib cage expanding and contracting with each breath, the rising and falling of the abdomen as you inhale and exhale. Noticing the back moving out as you breathe in and in as you breathe out. The shoulders rising and falling with each breath. And so we'll rest right there just for a few moments, maintaining open, spacious awareness in the sounds and silence, body and breath, and just rest. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed today's offering, extending joy to our perceived enemies or people we don't like very much, people of difficulty. Enemy, I think, is kind of a strong word. So, uh, again, we don't want to work this practice. If you're new to this practice, don't work with somebody who really hurt you or wronged you, but somebody for whom there's some clear tension towards. Because we're, again, attempting to expand that circle of care and compassion uh, towards people who we normally wouldn't consider to be a part of our tribe. So the idea is that we stretch further and further until we create a global tribe so that everyone is considered to be a part of us, a we. And when that happens, violence won't happen not because it's legislated, but because it's just inconceivable. The same way I wouldn't chop off my hand, I wouldn't steal from that person, or I wouldn't hurt that person. The same way I wouldn't take a knife and cut my leg. In just that same way, I wouldn't hurt the stranger, I wouldn't hurt the perceived enemy. And so that's how uh, we can change things. Might sound like I'm a dreamer, might sound radical. These practices are radical. And they are intended to create a very profound shift in the individuals, in the cities, in the countries, and eventually worldwide. That's the purpose there. So I will be back tomorrow guiding another meditation on joy for groups. And so here we're extending that care and compassion out even further to groups of people. And that's the second to last stage. That's the penultimate stage. And then the last stage is extending it to the whole world. Like that. And then, so that's over the weekend. I'll do that. On Monday, I'll wrap it all up with a talk. And then I'll let you know how things are going to unfold after that. I'm gonna shift the schedule up a bit, and I'm going to change it to maybe 2 or 3 days a week because the lockdown is over. For most of the world, things are opening up, for better or for worse. Things are opening up now. The original reason why I started these episodes was to keep people entertained or uh, hopefully enlightened a bit during their lockdown experience when they're at home. That was my original intention. So that is starting to shift, starting to change, and as a result, I need to get out more myself. So once the Brahma Viharas comes to an end, I will continue doing Facebook Live sessions, but it'll be a few days a week, not every day. And I'm going to be interviewing people. I'm going to be interviewing artists primarily that have a contemplative practice, whether it's meditation or journaling or yoga. And I'm going to be talking about how meditation inspires or influences or informs the creative process. Something that I am very involved with. I used to be a musician, and I'm now currently a writer. And I find meditation informs that creative process in a very profound way. So I'm looking for artists. So if there are any artists out there who would like to be featured, I'd like to have a chat with me, be on here and on my podcast as well. Get in touch with me, drop me a line, and we'll line something up. A couple of announcements very quickly before I wrap up. July 3rd, just a couple of weeks from now, I will be speaking at the Bodhi Tree Cafe 2 in Chiang Mai at 6 p.m. That'll be from 6 to about 7:30. I'll be giving a talk on a practice that I designed called Such Sweet Thunder. It is a mindfulness-based practice. We bring mindfulness to the present moment in stages. It unfolds in stages. It's beautiful practice, something I really enjoy teaching and enjoy practicing myself. So July 3rd, 6 p.m. Then July 4th at 2 p.m., also in Chiang Mai in North Thailand, I'll be speaking at the Holistic Healing Center, giving a talk on loving kindness. There will be an opportunity for question and answer and discussion after that, after both talks, actually. Then July 17th, I'm very excited to announce that I'll be facilitating a retreat at the New Life Foundation in Chiang Rai in northern Thailand. That is where I currently teach and reside. Now, we have been open for a few months, so this is kind of a soft opening, if you will. And we will be completely COVID friendly. So if you're in Thailand, or if you somehow manage to make your way to Thailand, which I think is rather impossible, so mostly for people who are in Thailand, do come and join me. This will be a beautiful, beautiful retreat. Cultivating loving kindness for 7.5 days. What could be better, right? So join me for that if you can. July 17th to the 24th. All of the information is on my website, www.suchsweetthunder.org. Also, there's hundreds and hundreds of videos on the Brahma Viharas if you want to take those up as a practice. Also, the Such Sweet Thunder practice is available on the website. Podcasts, articles that I've had written, both books that I've written are available there. So make your way to the website and enjoy. That's almost everything on the website is free, except for the 2 books. Everything else on the website is completely free. So enjoy that at your leisure. Thank you for joining me. Stay safe, stay clean, stay healthy, whatever that means for you. And I'll be back tomorrow extending joy to groups of people. Beautiful practice.